Hey guys, what's going on? This is Austin here with another weekly Do You Have video. Today we're trying to kind of change pace a little bit, and I brought Tom in to kind of talk about something in Christianity that's really crucial and really pivotal to the whole faith, and it's the whole matter of resurrection. And so Tom here is the assistant pastor at Scunthorpe Baptist Church, and just a really good friend of mine, really being able to just kind of see your heart and see your passion for the gospel. And so that's kind of what I want to hear, what your thoughts are on this issue and subject. And so kind of diving into it, I think the first question we kind of ask is, when we talk about the resurrection, like what are we actually talking about? I guess kind of define that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, resurrection. It's one of those words that we use a lot. It's become a very popular term in the church for good reasons. Mm-hmm. But the resurrection is quite simply the life and then the coming back to life after death of Jesus. And it's hard to have the Christian faith without the resurrection. And so that's why it's a good thing that the church is talking about it a lot now. But I think it's something that we need to, like you said, we need to get back to really understanding what we actually mean by resurrection. It's okay to believe that Jesus died and he came back to life, but we need to think about what the significance of that moment is, what difference it actually makes for our life. Someone dying and coming back to life could be the greatest miracle ever happen, but maybe there's more purpose to it, maybe there's more to the story of resurrection. And I think it's, as you've already hinted, it is the centre of the Christian message, so it's important that we understand what we mean.
Yeah, so we're actually, just to really kind of be clear, because I know there's kind of a lot of misconceptions when you look into this, that we're actually clear that Jesus actually did die, that he wasn't passed out or and then just kind of rejuvenated in the tomb. But we're actually talking about Jesus fully died and then fully came back to life.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time the church has focused on the cross. You know, we have crosses, and you go to our church building, there's a big cross outside, and many people focus on the cross, and that's the cross is a very important thing. But we need to remember that the cross was just the way in which the Roman army at the time decided to kill Jesus. Lots of people were crucified on crosses. It was a form of punishment, and it was common as well for people to be put in tombs, physically on a cross, died, physically put in a tomb. But then we need to remember that actually, physically, really, Jesus rose from the dead. This isn't just a story. This isn't just an idea or something that the church has decided makes a great Easter weekend for us. But it's actually something that physically happened. People put his body on the cross. People put his body in the tomb, and then when they went to see him again, his body had raised from the dead. I think we need to get back to this actual event that happened in history.
Yeah. So I guess this out of that then becomes, okay, well, what does resurrection mean in Christianity? Why does that play such a pivotal role, as you said earlier? To kind of go a little bit deeper on that.
I think it links in with that. You know, Jesus wasn't the first person to be killed on a cross, and he wasn't the first person to be put in a tomb after he died, but he was the most significant thing ever because he raised from death again into life, and that didn't happen very often. In fact, I'm not sure that's ever happened before that. And I think that was a demonstration then that this was something more than just someone who died for what he believed in. It was more than just someone who he believed in, of course, and because of that, people didn't like it, they killed him. I think it's the resurrection that shows us that God was doing something much more than just making a point. He was showing that Jesus is the Son of God, and that no matter what the world tries to do, whatever power we have, he can defeat it. And even death, which we would see as the end, is just the beginning of something new when it comes to God. And God is far above what the world can do. And I think it brings a story of hope and a story of how God can take something that is broken and dead and bring it to life, and how God is far above the control that we could possibly have. One of the greatest controls that man has ever had over another man has been able to kill them. But that God just shows that even above that, I can bring them back to life. I think it's just a very powerful thing that says there's something about this story that is far greater than any other story that's been told in history.
Okay. I guess, kind of knowing a little bit more about it, I think the huge question really kind of in this time is, okay, well, how does that apply to my life? So my question to you is, how has the resurrection played into your daily life, and maybe into the way you see things and the way you believe? So how's the resurrection really kind of vital to you in your Christian life?
I think that's good. I think it's a good question, because I think that the danger with it is that resurrection becomes something that we believe happened, and then that once we believe that, then that's enough. And I think actually the resurrection is something that influences the Christian life and influences my life actually on a day-to-day basis, because as I said just before, the resurrection is the ultimate sign in faith of hope and of how God can turn things around, and how death isn't the end, but actually there's far more to what we do than just life and death. And I think for me, when I was younger, I remember we used to do things like communion at church and really focus on the fact that Jesus died. And I think that time in my life when I began to realise that actually there's far more to this, that Jesus came back to life and now lives on for eternity. And I think just in my own life I started to feel more hope in things like, hey, like it isn't just about the fact that God died, it's the fact that God can bring something back to life, and God can bring hope into the most horrible situation. You know, it says in the Bible that for those 3 days there was darkness, and then life came back. And I think just that whole image maybe of God has really played a big part in my life, like realising that God can turn darkness into life. And just in the way I've approached life now, maybe just far more optimistic, because just this understanding that actually nothing is impossible with God. And the ultimate demonstration of that was in the resurrection. And so for me, just believing when life gets difficult, or when, you know, someone who works for a church, we come across people all the time in difficult situations, or family problems or money problems, just believing that actually we do believe in a God of resurrection who turns something that was dead into life. And so rather than approaching everything with such pessimistic approach and such fear and anger, actually we can approach things and say, hey, I do believe in a God who can turn anything around. And I think that's been a huge impact on my life. And I think for the last few years, really, when I've really been sold out for God, I've been able to see hope and optimism and just real faith come from the fact that, hey, if I believe this story about resurrection, then I can believe that God can turn things around. So it's played a big part in my own life.
I guess that's kind of the interesting thing about, I guess, Christianity in general is this, you know, we could talk about one issue, but just look at it from so many different facets. It's almost like a diamond. You know, you can look into a diamond and see it so many different ways. And so I think it's quite interesting to see maybe one facet that you pull from the resurrection. I mean, how true is that that is the ultimate message of hope, and that death, you know, the thing that seems to be rule over all things, and that, you know, 100% of people experience death at some point in their life. And to hear that Jesus didn't, I mean, he did, but he came back from it. So, man, I appreciate your time today, taking time to talk about the resurrection. It was really good, and it's always good to just kind of get more focus and more clarity on these issues, and hear maybe what the Bible says and people who have studied the Bible actually really say about these things. And so appreciate your time, and hope this blesses y'all this week, and y'all are able to take something about the resurrection and maybe a little bit more about what it is and how we really apply it to our lives. And I just hope the Spirit really blesses y'all through this. So y'all take care. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.